The security camera footage showed everything. A thin young man in a faded gray jacket slipped 2 loaves of bread, a carton of milk, and a small bag of apples into his backpack before walking toward the exit. His hands trembled. His face looked exhausted. And when the store alarm beeped softly, he froze like someone who knew his life had finally reached its breaking point. Employees rushed toward him, customers stopped and stared. The young man lowered his head, gripping the straps of his backpack as if holding together the last pieces of his dignity. What happened next would change not only his life but the life of the store owner who caught him. Before we begin, if you believe kindness and second chances can transform lives, please like this video. Share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, and subscribe to Kindness Hub for more emotional stories that remind us of the power of humanity. The city was bright and warm that morning. Sunlight reflected from office towers and busy storefront windows while thousands of people hurried through their daily routines. Most of them never noticed people like Rylan Mercer. At 26 years old, Rylan had become nearly invisible. A year earlier, he had worked as a warehouse assistant. The pay wasn't great, but it was enough to cover rent for the tiny apartment he shared with his younger sister, Maris. Then the company downsized. Hundreds lost their jobs. Rylan was among them. At first he believed he would quickly find another position. Weeks turned into months, interviews ended with polite rejections, applications disappeared into silence, savings vanished, bills multiplied. Eventually, he sold his television, then his bicycle, then nearly everything that wasn't essential. Still, he fought to stay optimistic. Every morning he woke before sunrise, printed resumes at the public library, and searched for opportunities. Every evening he returned home with disappointment weighing heavier on his shoulders. What hurt most wasn't his own hunger. It was watching 16-year-old Maris pretend she wasn't hungry either. She often claimed she had eaten at school when he knew she hadn't. Sometimes she pushed half her meal onto his plate when she thought he wasn't paying attention. The siblings became experts at hiding suffering from each other. By the beginning of winter, their refrigerator looked almost empty. 1 carton of expired yogurt. A few slices of bread, half a bottle of water, nothing else. The day everything changed began after 3 consecutive days without a proper meal. Rylan spent hours walking through downtown searching for work. Every business seemed to have the same answer. No openings, no vacancies, no opportunities. As afternoon sunlight faded, dizziness started clouding his vision, his stomach cramped painfully. He tried drinking water from a public fountain, but it only made him feel weaker. That was when he passed Harlow's Market. The store belonged to Garrick Harlow, a respected businessman known throughout the city. The market was successful, clean, and always busy. Fresh bread filled the air with a warm, comforting scent. For someone starving, the smell felt almost unbearable. Rylan stood outside for several minutes. He told himself he would only look, nothing more. Inside, shelves overflowed with food, families pushed shopping carts filled with groceries, children laughed, workers stocked products. The ordinary scene felt strangely distant. Rylan wandered through the aisles, staring at items he couldn't afford. A loaf of bread, milk, fruit, simple things that suddenly seemed impossible. His thoughts became tangled between desperation and shame. He knew stealing was wrong. He knew it violated every principle he had tried to live by. Yet another image kept returning to his mind. Maris sitting at the kitchen table pretending not to be hungry. The memory shattered something inside him. Minutes later, he slipped the food into his backpack. He walked toward the exit. Then the alarm sounded. The world stopped. Store employees surrounded him, customers whispered, humiliation burned through him like fire. The store manager called the owner immediately. Within 20 minutes, Garrick Harlow arrived. Unlike the wealthy executives people imagined, Garrick was a man in his late 50s who carried himself quietly. He listened as employees explained the situation and showed him the security footage. Everyone expected him to call the police. Instead, he studied Rylan carefully. The young man wasn't angry. He wasn't aggressive. He looked broken, completely broken. Then something unexpected happened. Rylan spoke, not to defend himself, not to make excuses, not to lie. He admitted everything. He confessed that he had stolen the food. He explained his unemployment. He described caring for his younger sister. Then he said something nobody expected. He asked if he could pay for the food with time. The employees exchanged confused glances. What did that even mean? Rylan explained that he had no money, but he was willing to work. He would clean floors, unload deliveries, organize shelves, take out trash, anything that he simply wanted a chance to repay what he had taken. The store fell silent. Garrick looked at him for a long moment. Years of business had taught him how to recognize manipulation, but this didn't feel like manipulation. It felt like desperation mixed with honesty, the kind of honesty people show when they have nothing left to lose. Instead of calling the police, Garrick made a decision that shocked everyone. He handed the bag of groceries back to Rylan, then he offered him temporary work beginning the next morning. Rylan couldn't believe what he was hearing. For several seconds, he simply stared, his eyes filled with tears. After months of rejection, one person had finally given him a chance. The next morning, Rylan arrived before sunrise. He expected hard work. What he didn't expect was how determined he would feel. Every box he carried felt like a step away from hopelessness. Every shelf he stocked felt like proof that he still mattered. He worked harder than anyone else. Employees noticed, customers noticed, most importantly, Garrick noticed. Week after week, Rylan continued proving himself. He volunteered for difficult tasks. He stayed late when needed. He never complained. Gradually, trust replaced suspicion. The workers who had once watched him carefully now greeted him like family. Meanwhile, life at home slowly improved. For the first time in months, the refrigerator stayed full. Maris smiled more often. Stress lines disappeared from her face. Hope returned to their apartment. Yet Garrick couldn't stop thinking about the day he had caught Rylan stealing. Something about that moment stayed with him. One evening after closing, he reviewed old business records and realized something troubling. Over the years, his company had donated money to countless causes, but he had rarely looked directly at the struggles happening just blocks from his stores. Rylan's story forced him to confront a difficult truth. Many people weren't failing because they lacked character, they were failing because they lacked opportunities. The realization changed him. Over the following months, Garrick launched a hiring initiative focused on individuals facing hardship, people with employment gaps, people rebuilding their lives, people who simply needed someone willing to believe in them. The program transformed dozens of lives, then hundreds, but the person who benefited most remained Rylan himself. A temporary position became permanent. A permanent position became a supervisory role. Years of responsibility and dedication revealed leadership abilities nobody had previously recognized. 3 years later, customers entering Harlow's Market often saw a confident manager helping employees and greeting shoppers with warmth. Most had no idea he was once the young man caught stealing food. One afternoon, a frightened teenage boy was detained after attempting to take a sandwich and bottled water without paying. Employees immediately called Rylan. As he approached, memories flooded back. The boy looked exactly as he once had, hungry, ashamed, terrified. Rylan listened carefully. The teenager explained that his mother had lost her job. They hadn't eaten properly in days. The story sounded painfully familiar. Some employees recommended involving authorities. Others argued for a warning. Rylan quietly purchased the food himself, then he sat with the boy and connected his family to local support programs. Most importantly, he gave them dignity. As the teenager left, tears filled his eyes. At that moment, Rylan fully understood what Garrick had given him years earlier. It had never been about groceries. It had never been about bread or milk. It had been about being seen, being valued, being offered a path forward instead of being defined by a single mistake. Years later, during the celebration of Harlow Market's community outreach program, Garrick stood before employees and local leaders. He spoke about success, not profits, not growth, not expansion, success measured by lives changed. Then he surprised everyone. He invited Rylan onto the stage. The crowd applauded as Rylan walked forward. Garrick shared the story of the stolen groceries and the young man who had asked to repay his debt with time. Many people in the audience wiped tears from their eyes, because they understood something important. Anyone can punish a mistake, not everyone can recognize potential. The standing ovation lasted several minutes. Rylan looked across the room and saw Maris among the crowd. She was now attending college and pursuing dreams that once seemed impossible. Their lives had been transformed because one person chose compassion over judgment. As the celebration ended, Garrick and Rylan stood together near the store entrance where everything had begun years earlier. The same doors, the same market. A completely different future. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like the video, share it with friends and family, and subscribe to Kindness Hub. Stories like these remind us that one act of kindness can echo through generations. Special request: comment below with the words, "Everyone deserves a second chance." If you believe compassion can change someone's life forever, the truth is that many people carry invisible battles. The person standing beside us in line, the worker cleaning a floor, the stranger walking down the street may be fighting hardships we know nothing about. Sometimes the difference between despair and hope is a single person willing to show understanding. Rylan entered that store believing he had reached the end of his road. Instead, he discovered a new beginning, and Garrick learned that the greatest investment he would ever make wasn't in products, buildings, or business strategies. It was in people, because when kindness meets honesty, extraordinary things can happen. A loaf of bread fed a hungry family for a day. A second chance fed hope for a lifetime. And sometimes, the most valuable payment a person can offer is not money at all. Sometimes, it's the time they spend becoming the person someone believed they could be.